Thanks,
All
buddy.
right, just the two of us, Joe. How's it going? Good to see you, buddy.
Just the two of us.
Dun,
Yeah, it's
dun,
good,
dun,
man.
dun, dun.
It's really a crazy, hectic time of year, but it's the most fun we have all season. Drafting our teams, doing the live streams, updating the rankings, the sleepers, the busts. Things kind of calm down in April. It gets more exciting in a way because we have real baseball, but things are a lot calmer from a content creator perspective.
People always ask, like, "Oh, the season's starting. This is the tough part for you," and it's like, "Nah, man. It's once the season starts, it's routine. It's the last 3 weeks when I'm doing like drafts every single night. I've got Tout Wars on Sunday, so I am. It's tougher right now, but we're in this Yahoo draft, and oh boy, I'm trying to just figure out how to make sure where do I click? This is a new format for me. I haven't played a Yahoo draft in a while. So there should be a
If you
draft button, right?
if you click on the player's name,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it should give you something.
it should. We're gonna.
Get
There
that
it
Q
is.
set just in case.
That draft button was hiding. I didn't have my screen wide enough because I'm trying to see the chat. I will try to show the draft board as we are talking, but obviously it's going to be tough because I'm trying to draft. And I did try to open up a second room to share the draft board, but it did not let me. It shut me out of that. So you can't do that. But we are here. We're in the first round. Aaron Judge goes first. That's the way I rank it. But in a league with two utility spots, it does make it a little easier to manage the Shohei Ohtani util only. He is my pick at number 2. We had Bobby Witt, Juan Soto, Ellie De La Cruz at 5th overall. I think that's certainly not the consensus pick, but Joe, how do you feel about Ellie this year?
I think that he is going to be really good. I just don't know if he's a first round returnee in terms of value. A top five would be asking a lot. Now, we have seen stretches where Ellie can hit for batting average, and in that park, maybe the power comes around more so. And also, we have to remember that he was dealing with an injury in the second half last season. So he
Mm-hmm.
could definitely be a better version of himself this year. That being said, I don't know if I could take him as high as 5th. That feels a little bit rich for my blood.
Yeah, for me, it's I have Ellie a little higher than the consensus, but it is after Ronald Acuna, it's after Jose Ramirez, it's after Juan Soto. So in this one, he went ahead of Ramirez, ahead of Acuna. I do think we saw a breakout from Ellie De La Cruz in the first half of last season. He cut the strikeout rate to like 24%. He was hitting for more power. He was on a 30-40 pace. And then he had that quad strain in late July that I think really messed him up. He didn't take a single day off, but it was a grade 2 quad strain that he was playing through. So that's really tough. Then we had Ronald Acuna 8th, Tarek Skubal 7th, Kyle Tucker 9th. To you, Joe. How early are you taking Kyle Tucker?
I think that's about it for me. I did debate going with one of the pitchers. I thought about Crochet or Skeens, but I think because it's a 12-team league and I am more so accustomed to 15s that I'm willing to
Mm-hmm.
wait a little bit more on pitching just because there will be more value later on in the board. Whereas a guy like Kyle Tucker, you're not finding him later on, a guy who could go 30-30 over the course of a
Mm-hmm.
full season. The last couple of years have been washouts, maybe not 2025, but he was playing hurt in the second half and we didn't get the full Kyle Tucker experience. I
Mm-hmm.
think over a full season in that lineup, we could see 30-30, 100-100, and hopefully in batting average close to 300 as well.
Yeah, I think the concerns about Tucker with the injuries are overblown. We've talked a lot about it, but it was a fractured shin that got misdiagnosed and then a fractured hand that also got misdiagnosed last year.
Yeah.
It seems unlikely that he will suffer a third misdiagnosed fracture. I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's been the issue for him the last 2 seasons. But we've seen a level up in terms of his plate discipline. He's a 30-30 guy, and we mentioned it during the first draft. Hidden behind Shohei Ohtani, in front of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, there aren't many better spots in baseball history than the one Kyle Tucker's going to be in this year. So I think there's a really good chance, like you said, 100-100, 30-30, batting average close to 300. That's real hard to replicate. Fernando Tatis is capable of that. Gunnar Henderson is capable of that. But there aren't a lot of guys who can do what Kyle Tucker is capable of. So I'm a big fan. He usually goes around 15 in ADP. The Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, I wrote about this yesterday, I think has him right at 15 or so. I think a top 10 pick is pretty easy for Tucker, and I don't know if the prices are reflecting that yet. Even in FBC, I don't think he's a top 12 guy yet.
Yeah, I think he gets there sometimes depending on the room, but consistently you are getting him at the back end of 15 teamers. The first couple drafts I did of the season were second round Tucker shares, and I don't know if we're going to get that too consistently. But another point is that the Dodgers around him are getting quite old. I mean,
Hmm.
Freddie, Mookie, Muncy, Will Smith, these guys are all on the wrong side of 30, and some of them well onto the wrong side of 30. Tucker
Yeah.
feels like a guy where, as long as there is no health nonsense again this year, 150 plus games does feel like it's pretty likely.
Yep, yep. That is one thing about the Dodgers' purported reign of terror over Major League Baseball is these guys are old. And look, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. Uh, I don't think there's a single Hall of Fame voter who shouldn't vote for any of those three guys, right? Like these are inner circle types. But I think Freeman is 34, 35. Betts is 31, 32. Otani's 31, I believe. So, you know, they're all on the wrong side of 30. So it's not impossible to see how things go wrong. Let's update picks so far in the second. Well, we had Paul Skeens and Garrett Crochet go in the end of the first round. Corbin Carroll sneaks in at 12. Vlad Guerrero, Julio Rodriguez, Junior Caminero, Gunnar Henderson, Fernando Tatis, Nick Kurtz. A little early, we saw Kurtz go later in the draft we just did, 27th overall, I think. I love that price. Then we have Kurtz going a little earlier this year. That's 18th overall. I prefer the 27.
Yeah.
But look, the season he just had as a 21-year-old with very little professional experience was outrageous. There are concerns about him and how he hit lefties. There are concerns about the batting average, but there is a chance Nick Kurtz just emerges as kind of the Goodyear version of Matt Olson in perpetuity. And
Yeah.
the ballpark helps. Where are you at on Kurtz? Closer to 18 or closer to 27?
If I could get him at 27, I would be tempted. He has been a fade for me at ADP, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's part of it is just I'm a sucker for a longer track record. It doesn't need to be
Sure.
a decade, but just a couple of full seasons. And Nick Hurts, it wasn't even one full season. Now, he replicated a full season's worth of stats in three-quarters of a year.
Mm-hmm.
But I worry about the strikeouts. I worry about the contact rate more than anything else, though. 76% in zone contact. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost 10% below league average. The swinging strike rate is still high. And I think the buffer there is that he is still in a minor league park. And even if he does struggle a little bit, we can still see 30 home runs. But if you're taking him, you're choosing between him and guys like the Churios of the world, maybe Jazz, Schwarber, one of those elite starting pitchers. I don't love him. I think if he falls to the third round, I could be
Mm-hmm.
talked into it. But at his ADP, I don't think I can.
Yeah, that's mostly where I am. I took him in TGFBI because he fell to 25, and I'll do that every time. That's pretty easy. But I do think both him, Vlad, and Pete Alonso, I think that top tier of first baseman, they should be ahead of the Matt Olson, Bryce Harper, Rafael Devers group, but it's pretty close for me, and
Yeah.
in a way that is not reflected in their prices. After Nick Kurtz, we had Kyle Schwarber, who, again, in our Roto talk earlier, I had some concerns about taking him in the second round. That's only one utility spot, though. When you have a second utility spot, being util only matters a lot less because it increases your flexibility throughout the rest of the draft. So I think Kyle Schwarber is perfectly fine there in this format. Jackson Churio goes next. Trey Turner, Kyle Raleigh, Jazz Chisholm, Pete Alonso with the last pick of the second round, then first pick of the third. Zach Neto, Francisco Lindor, Ketel Marte, Matt Olson, Christopher Sanchez, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and the seventh pick is up. And that, we see that second tier of starting pitchers start to go in the third round. I prefer when they go in the third round to the second round because I think Yamamoto's ADP is closer to 24 in the NFBC format. I think Christopher Sanchez went in the first round of one of the main events already. Though that tends to, you'll see guys get pushed up at starting pitcher there. Who is your number 4 SP for 2026?
It's Sanchez for me.
Okay.
I disagree a little bit with my co-host Paul Sporer and Justin Mason. We go back and forth on this a little bit, but I think it's kind of a big four at the top of
Mm-hmm.
drafts,
Okay.
and I think that Sanchez is a slight notch below the other three, but getting him
Mm-hmm.
2 rounds farther back, I mean, I'm taking that all day. I had Sanchez in my Tout Wars league. I've taken a bunch of shares so far. It feels like a really nice consolation prize if you want an early pitcher, but you don't draft in the 7 to 11
Mm-hmm.
range where they typically go. Sanchez is a nice fallback, and a fallback. I think he could still be an ace. I think he is an ace, but not quite being drafted on the same level as those other guys.
Yeah, for me, it's the 4 to 12 tier is very closely grouped. I think Sanchez is in there. I actually go Logan Gilbert in that. There's another draft where I'm not going to get Yordan Alvarez, unfortunately. And this is a league where he's outfield eligible, so that helps even more.
Yes.
He goes, Manny Machado goes 3-7, Yordan Alvarez 3-8. So I think that's a little later than he went in the previous draft. I think he went 25th in that one. I would take him there, but I know a lot of people are scared off by the injuries. My thing with Yordan Alvarez, and would love to get your take on him as well, I think there are like maybe 3 or 4 hitters who could hit 300 with 50 homers. And I think Yordan Alvarez has the skill set for it. And so, like, I just think he's truly, I think he's third in WRC plus over the past 5 seasons. I think he's truly just one of the special hitters in baseball. But
I
the injuries are tough.
I totally agree. Like if we could play in an MLB The Show fantasy draft, he would be a top 10 pick pretty handily every time. The thing that worries everybody is the varied injury history that he has
Mm-hmm.
at this point. There are just so many things. Last year was almost a full washout. He was my first round pick in Tout Wars
Yep.
last year in the OBP format. But I think he's more of a target if he falls. Like at his price, and I play a lot of NFBC too, so that
Mm-hmm.
colors the way I think about things. He's utility only there. Where he's
Yep.
outfield, that makes it a little bit easier. I just think if you are going to take him, you need to have a stable first couple of rounds. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a Vladdy or a Bobby Witt Jr. or a guy that you can almost write down in pen, they're going to play 160 games, then I feel a little bit more willing to take on the risk of Alvarez maybe only playing half a season. If I'm taking him with guys that are a little bit riskier in the first couple of rounds, if you're
Like
pairing him with,
say, like say Ronald Acuna and Fernando Tatis.
yeah, that's a little bit too rich for
Mm-hmm.
me. I mean, the upside there,
It's
that could
bonkers.
easily be the number one team, and I wouldn't be surprised. But there's a lot of risk as well. If I'm taking him, I more want him to be a backup option for the Bobby Witts,
Mm-hmm.
the Vladdies. I mean, Tatis I think is pretty safe from a games played standpoint, but there is still some risk. Gunnar Henderson,
Yeah.
even in an injured year last year, played a lot. So I want to have a stable 600 plate appearances at least, if not 1,200, before I take Jordan Alvarez, ideally.
Our number 6 starting pitcher comes off the board right after Yordan Alvarez. That's Chris Sale. Wyatt Langford, who that's a little rich, but I do really like Wyatt Langford this season. I think the degree of difficulty that he did last season in having 22 homers, 22 steals in 131 games, I believe, while playing through 4 different oblique injuries. Obviously, look, if there's something about him that makes him more prone to oblique injuries, that's tough because we did have 4 last year. But man, doing that with 4 oblique injuries is really tough because that's the oblique is all the rotational speed that you have as a player is in your oblique, so it can really disrupt seasons. So I think 34th overall, a little rich, but I can certainly see it. Then we have Bryce Harper, Brent Rooker, Corey Seager goes higher here than we're normally used to seeing him. Another guy,
Yeah.
I think he's one of the 3 best hitters at the shortstop position, but he doesn't steal bases. He misses a lot of time. It's been a lot of hamstring injuries as well. I will say his biggest absence last year was an appendix.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but once you get your appendix removed, my understanding,
It's only one.
there's only one. I haven't had any appendix issues since I was about 13 once I got it removed. That tends to fix the appendix issues. So that was what he missed the final month of the season with. He had a couple of IL stints with a hamstring injury as well. He's very injury prone, but could be a big hit there. Pete Armstrong, Bryce Terang, Logan Gilbert. That's my number 4, but I think that tier is right. Brian Wu goes right after him. 2 Mariners in a row. Jaron Duran goes a little higher than we're used to. That's one that, man, if he's hit some absolute bombs off of lefties this spring and in the World Baseball Classic. Where are you at on Jaron Duran while I try to make my pick?
He's one of my flag plant guys this year, and that has been on the NFBC where he is going a little bit later. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit surprising to see him go quite this early, but just last year, Jaron Duran was an early second round pick, and it was justified based on what he had done. 2025 was a little bit of a disappointment, but you still got 86 runs, 84
Mm-hmm.
ribbies, 16 and 24. I think the batting average is where some people worry because it fell down to 256 and the expected batting average was 248. But I think when you're looking at a guy who has hit 295, he has hit 285. I think we can get to 260, 270 type of range. And
Hmm.
like you said, he is crushing the ball in spring training. I don't worry about him being platooned or anything of that nature over the last two seasons. Duran 157 and 160 games respectively. So the Red Sox are going to play him. I know it's a bit of a crowded outfield out there, but even if he wasn't hitting lefties, I still think Jaron Duran would be a really nice pick. But if he is able to start hitting lefties now,
Hmm.
he could absolutely smash. And maybe by next year, we're looking at him as a second, third round pick again.
Yeah, he's such a weird player because he's relative. Like this is like his third full season. 2023, he had like a partial season where he was very good. He is 28 or 29 already, so it is one of those ones where it probably feels like he should be younger than he is, but we're in the peak seasons for Jaron Duran. He's a good 5 category player. It's a great ballpark. Um, it's the lefties thing because I've been worried that there might be some playing time risk in a crowded Boston outfield, but if he can hold his own against lefties, then I don't have that concern at all. It was just a problem for him last year. After Duran, we had Mookie Betts, then Roman Anthony, again, a little earlier, although not too much. Cody Bellinger, Rafael Devers, one of my absolute favorite players to draft this season. I think he's just way undervalued relative to some of the other first basemen. I took James Wood, who I added to my bust list for 2.0 this week. He was the lead. I can't get past the 40% strikeout rate in the second half, but that's when he's going. I think his ADP is around 30. I got him 47th overall. It's a lot easier to stomach when you get a round and a half discount. So I'm okay with that. Our number one overall pick team goes Hunter Brown, Logan Webb. So good volume there. You'll have to, I guess, well, no, they were both 200 strikeout guys last year just because Webb gets so much volume. Then I go Jacob deGrom as my first starting pitcher with the second pick. Jackson Merrill, another guy I really like. Cole Reagans, we had a long conversation about him in our first draft. Freddie Freeman, Max Fried. I think that's probably the end of the SP tier for me. I think this is where we see the drop off. If I look at my SP rankings, I think I have Fried at 12. And then there's a little bit of a drop off there. I really like Cole Reagans. Then you have Dylan Cease, Logan Webb, Kyle Bradish for me, where I do think there's a little bit of a drop off. Are you going to be, Joe, the person who's the first player to take a reliever? That happens here. Middle of the 5th round, 7th pick, Mason Miller goes off the board. Are you typically aggressive when it comes to drafting your relievers?
I don't know in the many years, 12, 13 years I've been playing fantasy baseball that I've
Mm-hmm.
ever taken the first closer off the board in the
Mm-hmm.
room. I tend to be the guy who waits for the second and third names to go because there are maybe 6 or 7 guys that I feel really good about at the top end there. The Diaz's, the Durans, the Cade Smith. So let the first couple go. And then I am going to take Edwin Diaz here and lock in that first
There you go.
absolute shutdown guy who could save. The upside is like 50 saves for the Dodgers this year. I don't expect that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think you're looking at a 30 to 35 floor with 100 strikeouts and good ratios.
Yep, that's he's been a little inconsistent from year to year. He is one of those guys when you look at the stats, it's an every other year is a sub 2 ERA, and then it's like a 3.5 or higher. He's not an even year, odd year though. That you have to remember, he missed that whole 2023 season after blowing out his knee, so it's not quite even year, odd year. Edwin Diaz. It's just been every other year. We do see him go off at 9 to you, Joe. Then Josh Naylor with the 10th pick of the 5th round, George Kirby with the 11th pick, and then Cade Smith. So a little bit of a closer run here. 3 of the final 6 picks in the 5th round. Is Cade Smith, do you think he's just in that elite tier, basically?
I think so. Yeah, not to be too Canadian biased here on the stream. I did see some love for Canada in the chat though, with how our team is doing. I wish Cade Smith was there representing the team right now,
Yeah.
but I'll take a healthy full season of Cade Smith. What he's done over the last 2 seasons is just phenomenal. And now we get the full run of him as the closer. There's no Class A in the mix anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The surface stats are amazing, but then when you look below the surface, like he did 293 ERA, but a 195 FIP, almost 30% strikeout minus walk rate. The stuff is phenomenal. I think that somebody could take Cade Smith as the first closer off the board, and
Hmm.
I might be a little bit surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked by it. I wouldn't think it's a bad pick or anything. I think he's just as elite as all the other guys up there. The team context is not quite as good, but his talent is as good as any reliever in the sport, I think.
The one thing I would say about the team context is, yeah, the Guardians are a worse team than the Dodgers. Certainly, I was going to say Padres. I don't know. That's going to be close. I think the win projections there, but the Guardians just always rack up huge save numbers. It was 3 straight years of Emmanuel Clase leading the American League in saves. He came, I think, 1 save short of leading the majors in saves for 3 straight years, which I don't think has ever happened in Major League history. If you combine Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase's save numbers from last year, I think they got to 40 as well. The Guardians just, they have their closer and they do not deviate from it. They are not one of these teams that plays any games with it. They win a lot of close games and their closers are really good. Cade Smith has the best FIP of any pitcher in baseball since he debuted. It's like 212 or something ridiculous. So great strikeout pitcher, great command. He's really good. I think he absolutely belongs there. He was the last pick of the 5th round. Then we go Byron Buxton, Geraldo Perdomo. I like that. I know that's controversial. Bo Bichette. Remember, he is third base. Will be third base eligible probably by Wednesday of the second week of the season. Austin Riley, and then Freddie Peralta goes off the board. One thing we haven't talked about yet is the Yahoo format here. So Frank introduced it. Pretty typical. 1 catcher, first base, second, third, shortstop, 3 outfield spots, the 2 util spots, which is an interesting wrinkle, and then the pitchers is where it gets really interesting because you've got SP, SP, RP, RP, and then 4 pitcher spots that you can throw any. This is where, if you see the Marmol strategy, it tends to be in the Yahoo format when you've got those 4 pitcher spots. Does that change how you approach pitching with just 4 pitcher spots to deal with?
In a league like this, not really. If it was a points league and I could use starters in the reliever spots, then I could game the system a little bit. Then it would make a little bit of a difference. In a head-to-head categories or a roto format, it doesn't really change much for me, though, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can do the Marmol strategy. I think it's especially viable in a head-to-head daily lineups league because then you can really get aggressive with, okay, I don't have any starting pitchers going. I'm just going to put a bunch of relievers in there. You can go with non-closing relievers as well. So It is viable there, but it's fallen out of fashion for a reason, I think. All right, I am up, and I am going to go with a pitcher that I like very much, who I drafted in the Roto League that we just finished. That is Kyle Bradish as my number 2 SP. I just think I've made the comp about an hour ago. It feels like Tarek Skubal coming out of 2023 when he threw like 80 innings. He had the best FIP in baseball. He had a 30% strikeout rate. And it was like, if what he did was real, he's probably the best pitcher in baseball. Now, Kyle Bradish wasn't quite that good, but it was like 12.9 K per 9, good control. Home runs could be an issue, but since the start of 2024, he has like 12.6 K per 9 and a 2.50 ERA. And so it's just, 1, is that real? And 2, can he stay healthy? But if he does, I think Kyle Bradish is going to be a top 12 starting pitcher.
Yeah, I think some of the innings concerns, I'm not as worried as I was just going over my offseason research. When we first started drafting and I was looking at 39 innings and then 32, in my brain, I'm thinking they're going to play him with kid gloves this year. He's only going to throw 110, 115 innings or so. And then just going through some other players, and there's not a direct comp here, but Drew Rasmussen threw, 40 innings, 28 innings, and then 28 went up to 150. So different type of pitcher, but we see teams that are willing to go from a very small workload to a larger workload. I don't think that Bradish is necessarily going to be capped at 110, 120 innings. I don't think he'll throw 200 innings, but I think even 150, 160 with the skills that he's displayed will more than pay off at his draft price. I'd prefer him as a 2, the way you got him, as opposed to my ace. I've seen some people building their teams with him as the ace, and I think that's a little bit too risky for my blood. But as the SP2 on a team, I think that's a great pick.
Yeah. Let's catch up on some more picks. I'll have some more thoughts on Kyle Bradish, but finishing off the 6th round, we had Dylan Cease, Yohan Duran, Michael Garcia, love that pick in the 8th round. Eugenio Suarez, big power. Framber Valdez with the 10th pick. I went Kyle Bradish. Very different approaches with Bradish and Framber. Big volume for Framber. Per inning, not quite as good. But you're going to get your 200 strikeouts in the end of the season. It might be a little headache-inducing along the way because he'll have those months where he just can't throw the curveball for strikes and can be very frustrating. But the end results are always really good. Riley Green, Andres Munoz to start off the 7th round. I went William Contreras with my pick in the 7th round, the second pick. I had him queued up. It was deciding between him and Bradish. I went with Bradish. Happy to get William Contreras back. One catcher league. So the one thing I run into is there is going to be a point in like the 18th round where I look at the queue and there are many good catchers available. There are more than 12 catchers I like this year. So in a one catcher league, how are you approaching it? Are you willing to take an early catcher or are you just waiting as long as you can?
I'm willing to. I took Ben Rice in a mock draft yesterday. I would prefer to wait if possible, but I think
Mm-hmm.
William Contreras, there's a very good chance he ends up as the number one catcher again, like he was in 2024. He was playing hurt the whole year last season. I think that Cal Raleigh is going to regress a little bit. So I wouldn't rank him number one. I think I have him at number two currently, but getting a guy with a clear path to number one in his position, even if you could maybe, take the value 10 rounds later, I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
good pick. I love William Contreras, a 5 category contributor from behind the dish. Just not something you come across very often. And if you're punting, you'll still get some good names, but you're not going to get the high batting average necessarily, the speed, the good lineup. So I like the pick. I like the pick.
You're going to take a sacrifice somewhere if you're waiting at catcher. Like, I really like Carter Jensen, but is he going to play as much as William Contreras? Probably not. Is he a safe batting average bet? Probably not. Is he going to steal bases? Probably not. So, that's Agustin Ramirez. He's going to steal a lot of bases. He's probably going to play every day. I actually think the fact that Agustin Ramirez is a pretty bad defender actually works in his favor because I think the Marlins can just stick him in DH and not even think about it. We'll worry about him losing catcher eligibility in 2027. He's going to have catcher eligibility no matter what. But there's some batting average concern for Agustin Ramirez. It's not a great lineup. So that's the thing. If you're not taking a catcher early, you are taking on some added risk. After William Contreras came off the board, Alex Bregman, Jesus Luzardo, Joe Ryan, Vinny P coming off his 3-homer game, first of his life, apparently. I thought that was a fun quote. CJ Abrams, Hunter Goodman, Nolan McLean, Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher. Where are you drafting Shohei Ohtani as just a pitcher? Because Yahoo is one of those formats that does split them apart.
Yeah. I think he's like 23rd or 24th for me right now. I took Nolan McLean one pick ahead of him. And he's not a guy that I've taken a lot, but I'm starting to fall in love with Nolan McLean a little bit. I don't love the price, but I'm willing to mix and match here a little bit and experiment with a different build. But Ohtani, we know he's going to not pitch 2 start weeks. Like that's never going to happen. But even 24,
much, yeah.
25 Ohtani starts is still potentially like a Cy Young caliber pitcher as we saw a couple years ago. The guy is just superhuman. If he threw a 2.2 ERA this year, I don't think anybody would be shocked by it. Now, the thing with the risk with the pitching Ohtani is that if there is any kind of injury or any kind of ailment, pitching is probably the first thing that will go.
Yeah.
And having him just as a pitcher there, like that could be a tough drop in the 7th round if there is some kind of arm problem in May or something. But I think the risk is probably worth the reward at that point of the draft.
Yeah, I think that's the right spot. He was followed by Tyler Soderstrom and Michael Busch, so a couple of guys who could hit 30 homers. Nico Horner, I think, is pretty much always a good value. Not huge upside, but 280, 35 steals, a bunch of runs. That's a pretty good player, and the batting average is always helpful. Nick Pivetta, it's a little earlier than I want to go with Nick Pivetta, even before we learn that he's dealing with some arm fatigue, which it doesn't sound like is super concerning, but for me, it's just kind of, it's kind of like the Jedi, meme where it's like the dumb guy on the right, the bell curve where it's like the dumb guy on the left, the Jedi on the right, and the guy in the middle. And it's like the dumb guy's like, don't pay for a 34-year-old coming off a career year. And the guy in the middle is like, yeah, but it was a new ballpark and the peripherals and the swing. And then the guy, the wise man is like, just don't pay for a 34-year-old coming off a career year. That's kind of how I feel about it. George Springer goes. That's another 35-year-old coming off a career year, although he tends to go a little cheaper. That's one that I'm a little more into just because you will see George Springer drop to 140 sometimes. And for the season he had, I'll take 80% regression at, if he goes outside of the top 100. Here, he goes a little more expensive, so it's harder to justify or to make the case that he's a great value. I think it's fine. You go with Michael Harris. I know there are some people who will just never draft Michael Harris again, but I think the thing people forget about sometimes with Michael Harris, because he's been around so much, it's been so up and down, he is 24 years old.
Yeah.
Like, he made his major league debut as a 20-year-old straight from Double-A. The plate discipline's terrible. It's led to a lot of inconsistency, but he is so talented, and there's a chance that he levels up. Are you hoping for the level up for Michael Harris?
Yeah, well, if he does what he did last year, again, I would be pretty disappointed. But even still, like last year, it was almost a joke how disappointing Michael Harris was, and yet he still went 2020 with 86 RBI in a horrible season with an 83 WRC plus. I don't know if I'm expecting the 137 that he had as a rookie, but let's say it's 110 or 115 like he was in 2023, where he's hitting for a good batting average, giving you something that resembles 2020. It might be 18 and 21 or 21 and 17 or something like that, but you're going to get that power speed mix with the ability to hit for a good batting average. Now, the only thing is that this team seems a little bit cursed over the last few weeks with all the injury updates and jerks and Profar and everything. But as long as nothing else happens, I think this team, and again, I feel like I'm slipping over the banana peels, Charlie Brown style, but they're due to rebound this year, as we've been saying for 3 years now. So I'm expecting better things from the Braves as a whole. And maybe the Profar suspension leaves room for Harris to move up that lineup a little bit. I'm not expecting him to hit second, but it's a possibility if he hits the ground running this year.
Yeah, he's a great athlete for sure. He hits the ball really hard and he makes a lot of contact. The problem is he just has some of the worst swing decisions in baseball, but you can squint and see, look at Pete Crow Armstrong and compare him to Michael Harris. They're pretty similar players. I think Pete Crow Armstrong, better bet for 30 homers, better bet for 30 steals, but as we saw in the second half, he is also, prone to some pretty ugly slumps. So I think the gap between Michael Harris and Pete Crow Armstrong, it's reasonable. It makes sense. But I think you can make a case that Michael Harris is the better value. After Harris, we got David Bednar, so starting to see some of those second-tier closers go off the board. Seiya Suzuki, another guy who I'll sometimes see fall a lot. Randy Rosarena, Devin Williams, Trey Savage. I know you're a Blue Jays fan. I see is that a gold Blue Jays hat?
This is from the 1991 All-Star game in Toronto. It's a replica. It's not from the actual game, but a Secret Santa gift from a couple of years ago that I tend to wear on a lot of streams.
Love that.
Savage feels a little early here inside the top 100 with all the restrictions, and they're going to slow play him in 2-inning outings. And even as a Jays fan and as a guy who fell head over heels in love for Trey Savage, watching him dominate the Dodgers in the World Series, I just can't do it in the top 100.
Yeah, I agree. I took him in our previous draft, but it was 160th. That felt like he fell too far because the way I'm looking at it, and I said this in the stream already, but I'll just repeat myself. Who cares? It's going to be frustrating in April, and you have to know what kind of fantasy player you are. If you're the person who every April you draft Francisco Lindor, and every April you're like, what's wrong with Francisco Lindor? Can I drop him? Do not take Trey Savage because it's going to be frustrating in April for sure. But I think you are very likely to get to May 1st and be thrilled that you have Trey Savage on your team. So it depends on the round. I think it's more like the 13th, 14th round, but I'm absolutely willing to take him there because I think I can survive April, especially April's the time of year where you're going to have your chance to hit on some breakouts. So it's going to be hard because you probably just need to stash him on your bench for a month, right? Like that's just, I think the thing with Trey Savage. But by the time May rolls around, I think he'll be more or less fully stretched out, and I think he's going to be really good. So that was a little early, but I think the overall concept is fine. We had a Aroldis Chapman. I took Christian Yelich, and I want to highlight, it is funny that Yahoo is the format that gives the second utility spot and gives you extra flexibility there, and is also the format where Christian Yelich is outfield eligible and Yordan Alvarez is outfield eligible. So it's like you have the flexibility and they're the most generous with their positional eligibility requirements. So it's actually much easier to take Yordan Alvarez and Christian Yelich, whether you have the second utility spot here or not. Yeah. Yelich, we had a nice bounce back season from him last year. There were some slippage of the contact skills. The strikeout rate, I think, was a career high last year, but the back injuries seemed to help. He stayed healthy. He was really effective when he was out there. I like the lineup. I like the ballpark. So I'm fine with Christian Yelich here. Then Jeremy Pena goes with the last pick of the 8th round. That's one that before the finger injury probably would have been fine. I think there's probably a little room for a discount, but he might be ready for opening day. They have not ruled him out yet. So that's the thing with Jeremy Pena. Yandy Diaz goes at 9-1. I think that's fine. I'm a little higher on Yandy than I think most people are. I don't know where you are at on him, but I think you're going to get good RBI, good batting average, and it's just, do I get 15 homers or 25 homers? That's the question.
Yeah, we've seen him hit 20 at the Trop before, and I think it's just that late batting average that once you're getting around pick 100, very few players have the potential to lead the league in hitting, right? And he's a guy who has I think the 330 is the highest he's hit in his career. Probably not going to get there, but 315 is definitely within the realm of possibility. A guy who could win the batting title. And I worry about the Trop a little bit, but for a guy with a tried and true track record like Yandy Diaz, it worries me less with him than a guy like Junior Caminero.
Yeah. My concern with Caminero is I don't think the road home splits last year matter. I think that people are looking at it and saying like he had a 950 OPS at home and a 740 on the road. It's almost entirely BABIP. His strikeout rates were very similar. The quality of contact for me, it's just. Some guys can't hit at Tropicana Field. Willy Adames just could not see the ball there. I don't know if Junior Caminero is one of those guys. So that's a concern there for me. I went with one of your guys, Blue Jay, Kevin Gausman, as my he is my number 3 starting pitcher, but I'm drafting a lot of Kevin Gausman this season. I thought he really figured it out as the second half went on, especially. He got the feel for the splitter back, and he was excellent. So I think he's a undervalued volume play. And then we get the opposite side of the spectrum with Yuri Perez as the next pick of the 3rd round or the 9th round, 3rd pick. He has so much upside. And I think he's going to be great. But this is a guy that's probably maxing out at 150 innings. And so you really need those innings to be excellent. And I think they will be. But he's still trying to figure out the mix of secondary pitches. The fastball's incredible from his height and the velocity he throws with. But, he's working on the sweeper, curveball, slider, changeup. He's got a lot of different options, but he hasn't quite figured out what the right mix is. So Yuri Perez is a player I have trouble drafting. I don't know where you're at on him. I really like him. Obviously, I'm a Marlins fan. But I'm just a little worried that it's not going to happen this year, even though I do think it will happen eventually.
Yeah, one of my bold predictions for the year is that he's a top 5 starting pitcher. And I think it's well within the realm of possibility. Like at the 4.25 ERA, I think people will look at and think it was maybe a little bit of a disappointing season, but coming back over 20 starts after TJ, I think that the last thing that typically comes back is command. And he did have a little bit of a struggle there at points, but an 8% walk rate with a 105 whip and your first time returning from TJ at 22 years old, I'll take it. The ERA was a bit inflated, but a 3.24 xERA, the FIP was 3.67. My personal favorite of those stats is Sierra, and that's where he's not quite as good at 3.80, but with the stuff running up the way it is, the stuff was actually better post-surgery, and I think as the command continues to come back, the only question really for me is how many innings the Marlins will let him go. And projections range from 117 to 154, so they're not even 100% sure. But I think, if you're penciling in 140 and then anything beyond that is gravy, I think you're not going to be disappointed. He's a guy where next year, if Yuri Perez is one of those guys where somebody took Yuri Perez in the first round of the main event and he's a 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick all draft season, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised.
No, I agree with that. I think he's very likely to be a top 12 starting pitcher in drafts next year, even if he doesn't quite finish as a top 12 starting pitcher this year. Yeah. He is, I want to say he's something like 18 months younger than Nolan McLean. And wow. Yuri Perez debuted in 2023. Yeah. So that's how young he is. He debuted like a month after his 20th birthday, I think. After Yuri Perez, we had Nick Lodolo, Shea Langoliers, Jose Altuve, Jacob Misiorowski. So we're seeing that kind of. Yuri Perez isn't a second-year pitcher, but we'll throw him in that group with Chase Burns, who goes a little bit after, Trey Savage, Nolan McLean, who you took a couple rounds ago. You were the one who took O'Neal Cruz. I don't like O'Neal Cruz,
I
but
don't
I
either.
think the price is okay there. He usually goes inside the top 100 in categories and roto leagues. That's where I'm just like, I can't do it with a guy who hit 200 and maybe can't hit lefties, you know?
I
But
totally hear you. Totally
outside
hear
the
you.
top 100, 40 steals, 20 homers, maybe room for growth. I can see the case for it.
There was a podcast earlier this year where I said to Welsh that he might be in Korea in a few years if he doesn't figure
Yeah.
things out. And that is like the extreme end of it. But the other end of it is that O'Neal Cruz puts it all together and he gives you a 35-35 season. I'm not expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a guy that I've taken. This might be the first time I've taken him in draft season, real draft or mock draft.
Mm-hmm.
But the upside, I think, is still immense. And a guy who's he's 27 years old. He's entering into those ages of his peak years. The thing with him is just raise the ball. Just
Yep.
raise the darn ball. So far in spring, it's a very small sample size, but he has a 15-degree launch angle compared to the 8-9% it's been the last couple of years. If he's 15% consistently, I think he's going to be a star. And maybe that's too fine of a margin. Maybe if he's closer to 16, 17%, which
Mm-hmm.
might be asking a little bit too much, but all he needs to do is raise the ball. I mean, the contact rates are a concern too, but even if he does give you a bad batting average, if he's a 220 guy, but he's 30-30, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. And in a 12-team league where there will be higher replacement level value on the wire, I think you can take a chance if he falls outside the top 100 picks. If it works out, it's phenomenal. He was like a second round pick last year. If it doesn't work out outside the top 100, you already have your foundation built at that point.
I think that's a good way to view it. All right, let's try to catch up. Chase Burns goes with the 10th. Cam Schlittler, so just all those second-year pitchers. Zach Wheeler, last pick of the 9th round. I just have no idea. I had hoped we would see him on a mound by now. It sounds like they still hope he can be ready by mid-April, even though he hasn't pitched in a game. For me, it's just I don't know who he is anymore. He's coming back from blood clot that led to thoracic outlet surgery. He was a top 3 pitcher as recently as whenever the injury was announced. So it's I'm gonna go a little off the board here with JJ Weatherholt just because I want to highlight something that I noticed here. One, we said it earlier. I took him in the previous draft. JJ Weatherholt, I think, is just the starting second baseman for the Cardinals. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Nice thing about Yahoo is they've just given him second, third, and shortstop eligibility. I don't know
Gotta
how
love
we
it.
determine that. He played all 3 of those positions in the minors, so that maybe that's just how we're determining it. But I can slide JJ Weatherholt in at third base, and if you look at both first base right now and third base, not a lot of great options available to pick at either of those positions. I have second base filled with Jazz Chisholm. I have Francisco Lindor. But that third base, it's like Matt Chapman, I think he's fine, but not much more than fine. JJ Weatherholt could be, a 2020 guy with a good batting average as a rookie. So I'm going to go with him here. It's maybe a little bit of a reach, but that flexibility is really nice, and I wanted to highlight that. That JJ Weatherholt gets that. Let's catch up on the 10th round. Luke Keeschel, Ozzy Albies, who I think is just one of the most undervalued players this season. I think as long as he stays healthy. We saw him hit a 410-foot bomb for Netherlands in the World Baseball Classic. That was nice to see as a lefty. It was harder hit than all but 2 of his batted balls as a lefty last season, so that was cool. Raisel Iglesias, Ryan Helsley, Spencer Strider. Ooh, I don't know. Just no idea. I'm hopeful. I'm not optimistic, is the way I would say it about Spencer Strider. Carlos Estevez, also not optimistic there. His velocity was down about 5 miles per hour on his fastball. I'm going to go ahead and take a first baseman here, Wilson Contreras. So I've got the brothers Contreras here at catcher and first base. Catching up, Sonny Gray was the 7th pick of the 10th round. Teoscar Hernandez. Agustin Ramirez, 25 stolen base potential from your catcher. You love that. Joe Adell coming off a big breakout season. I went JJ Weatherholt. Then Kyle Stowers goes with the last pick of the 10th round. Josh Hader with the first pick of the 11th round. That's enough of a discount, I think. I know he's going to start the season on the IL. He's got the biceps injury. You could get nothing out of Josh Hader.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's IL or it's Yahoo, so you figure there's a few IL spots assumed, so
Mm-hmm.
you can take that risk. If I were that guy, I'd be backing it up with Brian Abreu ASAP.
Yeah.
But I think that it is enough where it's probably worth it in an IL format. If it's a league without IL spots, I think I'm just crossing them off. But I can understand taking the discount in a league where you can stash them for a while.
I'm trying to figure what is the color coding system on this draft board? Is it just all infielders are red? Is that no? It's not because
Corner,
shortstops.
or maybe
Okay, it's corner versus middle.
no, but Ketel Marte's red too, and so is Bryce Terang. So it might be infielders are red.
But then Bobby Witt, the shortstops are all green. But then all
I,
the other infielders are red. That's all right.
you
And then
need a
the
master's
outfielders are,
degree.
yeah,
You need a
I
master's
can't
degree to
figure it
figure
out.
this out.
All right. I went William Contreras with the second pick of the 11th round. Daniel Palencia with the third. Sounds like he's just the closer for the Cubs as long as he can keep the walk rate under control. Michael King, he's someone that I think is being overlooked, but he did, I know he missed a ton of time last year. It was a nerve issue in his shoulder and then a knee or a hamstring, something like that. But he signed a $75 million contract this offseason for a Padres team that is pretty worried about money, so they seem to have some faith in him. Ryan Pepio, one of my favorite breakout candidates at pitcher, going back to Tropicana. I think that fastball is going to play up again. Jeff Hoffman, Scott has talked a lot about. He really likes his bounce back potential. Luis Robert, where are you at on Luis Robert with the Mets?
I'm kind of excited. I mean, maybe Andrew Vaughn has got me too excited about thinking once you get out of Chicago, it's like, being released from prison or something like
Yeah.
that. And Andrew Vaughn turned into like a Prince Fielder, Albert Pujols type of first baseman down the stretch, hitting 300, giving you a ton of power. The thing with the Brewers is they're always underrated. He's going to be in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of that lineup without any playing time concerns, qualifying at a poor position. And I think that, that is something that gets me interested in Andrew Vaughn. And then
Mm-hmm.
Luis Robert, it's kind of the same thing, just getting out of a terrible, terrible, terrible environment where he didn't seem happy the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there had been talk about, he had some disagreements with management, and I think it's just a good fresh start for a guy who has in his career more than 30 home runs in a season. He has stolen more than 30 bags in a season, and he
Mm-hmm.
has a season where he's hit, I think it was 284 was his high batting average. I'm not saying he's going to do all those things at the same time, but if he
Yeah.
puts it all together, in 2026, Luis Robert could return like a second round value if he's a 25-25 guy in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of that order, hitting 270 or something. And maybe that's asking too much of him, but this price for Luis Robert is, I believe, the lowest it's ever been, or going back
Oh
to
yeah.
maybe his rookie year, it's the lowest it's ever been. So he's another guy where I will take the fall on him. It's maybe, I don't know, it's kind of a cross between a boring pick and a little bit of an exciting
Mm-hmm.
pick at this range. He's not a steady veteran, but he's not a young guy necessarily, but there feels like a lot of upside, especially in the 11th round with a guy like Lubov.
All right, we follow him up with Nathan Eovaldi, Will Smith, the catcher. I think we're at the point we don't have to specify. I don't think anybody's drafting Will Smith, the pitcher. He might be retired.
He might be.
Salvador Perez, Emilio Pagan. So we've seen a lot of closers the last couple of rounds. I think I'm going to punt closer because this is the weekly head-to-head categories where you're just going the 10 categories per week, right? So if
Yeah.
I can not have to worry about saves, I think I can manage that, but it's always risky.
It's daily, Chris.
Daily, even worse or better. Thank you, Frank. Trevor McGill goes with the last pick of the 11th round. Joe Musgrove with the first. Pete Fairbanks, another closer. Tyler Glasnow. Jorge Polanco, who I really like. That's a little early, but I do rank him around 150, actually, so that's only a little bit of a reach for me.
Yeah.
He's going to be first and second eligible this season. He's third base eligible for Yahoo as well. Those are the two weakest positions, and first base runs out fairly quickly as well, so I like that flexibility. Colson Montgomery, this is another one that I think it's a little bit of a reach, but I'm surprised at how cheap Colson Montgomery is, and I think he's a good example of something we talk a lot about on the show, where fantasy baseball has gotten a lot harder to play because a decade ago, Colson Montgomery has 22 homers in 70 games as a rookie, top prospect, former first round pick. That dude's a top 150 pick for sure, maybe a top 100 pick this time a decade ago. And now we're able to look at it and say, well, the whiff rate was really bad and the minor league track record was not very good. And so we have reasons to believe that he's not going to be good. So he goes outside of the top 200 in a lot of drafts. And I think that goes too far. I think this price is a little too high, but I think as a general rule, he's a pretty good value this season. Brandon Woodruff, His velocity's down again this spring. He's going to be ready for opening day. I have no idea if it matters that his velocity is down. What do you think about Brandon Woodruff? Because his velocity was down 3 miles per hour last year, and he was phenomenal when he was healthy.
Yeah, the thing with Woodruff last year, I worry we're going to enter into the same realm as last year, where we're waiting for him to return. He's going to be
Mm-hmm.
back next week. Oh, it's next week. And then we're
Yeah.
2021 rehab starts into the season. And it's like, well, are we ever going to see Brandon Woodruff? He comes back, he looks great, but then he ends the season not healthy again. It's a lot of risk to take onto your team, I think. We're going to, I've said this a lot. Everybody said this a lot. You're going to get so many injured players, specifically pitchers throughout the season. Do you want to start stockpiling them in March? I personally don't. I think if he falls closer to pick 200, I'd be willing to take Woodruff. I don't know if people are
Mm-hmm.
going to let him fall that far. I just really don't want to be taking anybody who's going into the year hurt. And that's why I'm not a huge Blake Snell guy. And
Yeah.
anybody who has anything that's not even necessarily significant, but just anything that pops up in March, I worry in the back of my head that that's just going to be a problem for the entire year. And maybe Woodruff, just the way it happened last year, has colored my thinking a little bit. Maybe he
Mm-hmm.
will be fine starting in the middle of April and give you 160 innings, but I'd bet closer to 60 than 160.
Yeah, I think that's all fair, and it's frustrating because he was really good. The thing that I really struggle with is he has the shoulder injury, he has the shoulder surgery, he misses basically 2.5 years, and then he last March, it's like, oh, is Brandon Woodruff going to be ready for opening day? Maybe, but probably not. And his rehab process was really rocky, and he doesn't end up returning until what, July? And then he gets through 60 innings and suffers another lat injury, so not quite a shoulder injury, but it's near the shoulder certainly. And so it's tough to expect him to remain healthy and effective at this point in his career, unfortunately. He's followed by Emmett Sheehan, Matt Chapman at third base, Christian Walker, Sandy Alcantara, who I'll take the homer one on that one. I expect Sandy Alcantara to be very good. I think he
Yeah.
figured it out after the All-Star break. It was a 3.13 ERA. He was pitching 6 or 7 innings every single time out. I think he's going to be great. I went with Bubba Chandler, then Mackenzie Gore, who's a very popular breakout pick after that trade to Texas. I mostly believe in it. I think he needed a change of scenery for sure, and so I'm pretty hopeful that Trevor Rogers is going to Mackenzie Gore is going to figure something out. Gavin Williams, we're on a big starting pitcher run here the last round or two. I really like last 3 rounds have just been a ton of starting pitchers. I mentioned in the last draft, but you do reach a point outside the top 200 where, boy, it feels like the pitchers are just so much obviously more interesting than the hitters. And so I'm inclined to go a lot more hitter heavy in the top 100 than pitcher heavy, just because, I mean, this round, Gavin Williams, big breakout in the second half, huge stuff. Trevor Rogers was arguably the best pitcher in baseball on a per inning basis last season. I think we're going to get a lot of regression, but it might still be a mid-threes ERA pitcher. That's what the peripheral suggested last year. Ronher Suarez, Kenley Jansen as a closer. I think he's going to be the Tigers' closer. Tanner Bybee was a top 25 closer or starting pitcher going into last season. Drew Rasmussen, we know he's phenomenal, and it's just you're probably only getting 150 innings out of him at the best. But Drew Rasmussen is going to put up phenomenal ratios. Xavier Edwards, Kazuma Okamoto. Let's get the Blue Jay fan perspective. I think my expectation for him is like those post Coors Field Nolan Arenado seasons where it was like 260, 270 batting average, 25 to 30 homers. Maybe that's a little higher end, but 25 homers, good contact skills, good RBI skills as a result of that. And I think there's a chance Kazuma Okamoto ends up eligible at multiple positions. He's going to play a lot of third base, but I think he's going to be their primary backup first baseman. There was some talk about playing him in the outfield. There was some talk about maybe at second base trying him out. I don't know if they've done that in the spring, but I think he does have experience playing multiple positions in Japan as well. So I think that super utility thing could really work out for Kazuma Okamoto.
Yeah, Roster Resource has him slotted in hitting seventh, and I think that even if that does play out
Mm-hmm.
to start the year, he's a guy who could be hitting second pretty
Mm-hmm.
easily. And that might switch around depending on the lineup. The Jays really like to play their matchups, as everybody saw in the playoffs. John Schneider is pulling every lever possible, so there will be some mixing and matching. But Okamoto hitting second, I think, is definitely possible. And if not second, then fourth or fifth. I don't know if they're going to hit him behind Jesus Sanchez. I don't know if Dalton Varsho is going to hit second necessarily. I think this
Mhm.
lineup is still going to move around a little bit, as I will take Cedane Rafaela here in our draft. But Kazuma Okamoto, like my floor expectation is like 20 homers, 60 runs, 70
Mhm.
RBI with a good batting average. He's not going to steal, but getting eligibility at first and third, I think is going to be really valuable. And a guy who has been NFBC, Yahoo, it doesn't matter where you're drafting. He's been kind of an afterthought. His price is trending up a little bit now, but he was
Mhm.
outside of the top 200 picks even well after he signed.
Yep.
So I think he's a really solid draft pick this year.
Hi, Frank.
Hey,
Hey, what's going on? How's everybody doing? How's the draft?
we're good.
We're
good.
moving. We're midway through the 14th round. We'll catch up. Jack Flaherty was Joe's 13th round pick. Willie Adames, Drake Baldwin, great value on Drake Baldwin. That'll happen in a one catcher league. Brian Reynolds, Chandler Simpson, Taylor Ward, Blake Snell in the 14th round. I have no idea. Maybe he's back in May and is awesome, but I have no idea. And then Joe, you took Cedar Rafaela. He's someone that I think is a pretty bad value in NFBC. Like he goes like 110, 120 there. And I think the hitting skills are just really weak to justify that. And I think part of it is a lot of these are like draft and holds where having second and outfield eligibility is pretty valuable. But I worry about it. But I think the value there is fine. You got him with the 160th pick. So that's a lot closer where I have him ranked. Caleb Durbin follows him up. It sounds like he's the starting third baseman for the Red Sox. Robbie Ray, Shodi Managa. Frank, I know you're buying the Shodi Managa bounce back. And then Connor Griffin in the 14th round. Good value. Hard to complain. I think even if he doesn't start the season in the majors, which I still think there's a chance, you're not going to complain about getting him in the 14th round given the upside. Frank, you want to take the lead again?
I will take the lead, Chris. I appreciate you and Joe holding it down while I was out eating some dinner. Chicken wrap. It was great.
It is dinner time. It is almost 6. I was like, dinner? It's too early. Now it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, no, it's about to. You know what? A lot of nights I eat dinner like 8 or 9. It's so.
Yeah, I eat late.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's not on purpose. You just kind of like lose track of time and everything. But I do know that Joe has to run. We appreciate you being here, Joe. So I'm gonna just remind everyone to follow you on X at Joe Orrico 99. Again, you can find his work over at Fangraphs, Fantasypros, and FTN Fantasy. Joe, we appreciate you hopping on. Are you ready to be dominated in the World Baseball Classic on Friday?
Oh,
It's on, baby. You know what the ultimate irony is you guys beating us at hockey and us beating you at
that would be
baseball.
fun.
That would be-
okay.
that
That's
would be
actually a
funny.
fun angle. Yeah,
That would be pretty funny.
that's a revenge game.
Yeah.
It means the simulation is very much broken at this point.
Anything else you'd like to promote before you hop out, Joe?
No, just check out the Twitter. We're doing a lot of podcasts at Fantasy Pros. We did our Fantasy Fest yesterday, and there's a ton of segments. You were on there, Frankie, for a while, and those segments will be out on the podcast feed on YouTube. If you want to sign up for the Beat Joe Orrico League, I know you guys got the Beat FBT League tonight. There's one next Wednesday, March 18th at 8 o'clock if you want to take me on. Hopefully you guys sign up too. Let's get some competition going. But great to be on here, guys. I really appreciate the invite.
Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right, we are continuing on here with the Mock Draft Mega Stream. We are in the midst of our 12-team head-to-head categories mock draft here. Again, this is the Yahoo standard format, daily lineups here. And let me take a look at how you're doing here, Chris. You've got the Contreras.
I doubled up. I got the Contreras.
You got both of them. William and Wilson. You got Jazz at second. JJ Weatherholt at third. Francisco Lindor at short. James Wood in the outfield. Christian Yelich, outfield eligible on Yahoo. Very interesting.
Hey, Frank, you might have to make the pick.
Do I?
Now that you've joined the draft room, it's not letting me pick.
Oh, who do you want to pick?
Tatsuya Imai.
Did you not want to take Luis Castillo? Did I mess that up?
That's fine.
Right.
But if you might have to leave the draft room in order for me to take back control, unless you want to draft.
I just joined in so I could tell people to draft faster because we have to fit.
Well, close it out. It's not letting me draft.
All right, I took Tatsuya Imai for you, but I will hop out now, so you're back in control. You might have to refresh it, but there you go. But I won't be able to like scroll around to teams and
okay, no, it's fine now.
So
it's fine.
You can read off the draft picks and everything, and I'll just react to what you've done.
Oh,
here.
I have to be in charge still? Okay. I took Luis Castillo with the second to last pick of the 14th round. Before that, it was Brian Abreu and Marcus Semien, who went after Connor Griffin, then Jacob Marcy in the 14th, Kevin McGonigal at the top of the 15th. So the big three shortstops are gone. I did take JJ Weatherholt. What round was that? That was the 10th round, so that was early, but I wanted to do that to highlight something, Frank. JJ Weatherholt, second, third, and shortstop eligible
On Yahoo.
on Yahoo. So that is super valuable. That is two of the weakest positions. I've got him slotted in at third, but if anything happens with Jazz Chisholm, I can move him there. Anything happens to Francisco Lindor, I might have to start JJ Weatherholt if Lindor's not ready, although it sounds like he will be. So that was my thought process there. I took Tetsuya Imai with the second pick of the 15th round. Andrew Abbott, Griffin Jacks, Ryan Walker, Andy Pages, Addison Barger with the 7th pick of the 15th round, and we've got the number 8 pick on the clock. So
Connor Griffin, just want to highlight that again, 164 in this draft. He went 140 in the previous one, so pretty good price tag there, just comparatively to where he went in the first draft. Also ADP in March, I think he's like a top 140 pick. So pretty good value there on Connor Griffin based on where he's been going. I see the Brian Abreu pick. Did he go to the same team that drafted Josh Hader?
No, Josh Hader went to the first team in the 11th round, and then Brian Abreu. Looks like that guy's got a couple of, they've got 4 relievers. So they're going the opposite of what I'm doing because they're drafting a lot of relievers.
Baby. Marmol strategy.
I have not taken a reliever. I have 7 starting pitchers so far. They are Jacob deGrom, Kyle Bradish, Kevin Gausman, Bubba Chandler, Trevor Rogers, Luis Castillo, and Tetsuya Imai. So I like the talent, and it is a daily league, so we'll be able to swap out when guys aren't starting. But, I'm kind of punting saves here.
Which
rest of the starting lineup.
Very easily do in a head-to-head categories league.
Yeah. Where are you at on Imai? He hit 99 miles an hour with his fastball in his most recent spring start. What I was reading is that the one thing about Tetsuya Imai is he averages about 94, 95 with his fastball, but it fluctuates a lot from start to start. He apparently struggles to repeat his mechanics. So some starts he's like 92, 93, and then some starts he's 96, 97. But it was interesting to see him hit 99. I think the weird slider and splitter combo is going to take a lot of hitters by surprise. I think Tetsuya Imai could be like Shota Minaga, where that first year is really good, and then it's a little shakier after that. But I think the first year for Tetsuya Imai should be pretty successful. After Addison Barger, we had Chris Bubich with the 8th pick of the 15th round, so a little bit of a discount from where he went in our previous draft, but much higher than his ADP. As Scott said, Chris Bubich, that ADP is around 200, doesn't ever seem to make it that far. So if you want Chris Bubich, I think you do have to be a little more aggressive to make sure you get him.
I think we'll be able to get him tonight because it's really the NFBC drafts where he lasts way too long. So hopefully nobody who's drafting against us is listening right now. And then we could draft Chris Bubich. How about that?
Hopefully they've never listened to us because we talk about Chris Bubich a lot. Stephen Kwan, Shane McClanahan, Dennis Santana finish out the 15th round. Alec Boehm, Noel V. Marte. Noel V. Marte is really slipping in a lot of the drafts we're doing lately. He was in my Bus 2.0 column that I published earlier this week, but that's with an NFBC ADP of around 130. And I think that's I think he's third base and outfield eligible there. So I think dual eligible players get a real boost in NFBC, especially a lot of those draft and holds, like I mentioned with Cesar Rafaela. Then Jacob Wilson comes off the board. And Aaron Nola. We are all caught up.
Noel V. Marte, his ADP in March over at the NFBC, 136. So
yeah, that's too high for me for a guy who...
You brought it to our attention, me and Scott, that there's a chance that Noel V. Marte is not an everyday player.
Yeah, there was a quote from Terry Francona earlier in the offseason where he talked about, who he'd like to go to for the number 2 spot in the lineup. And Vlad mentioned this during the earlier draft, but it's probably going to be Matt McClain. But it was, he mentioned specifically Matt McClain as a possibility, but then he was like, yeah, but he was so bad against lefties that I'm just not sure I can do it. And he's a bad defensive player, at least a developing defensive player. Maybe he figures it out, but it's been rough out there this spring. And, you're a bad hitter against lefties and you're bad defensively. Well, that's kind of like well, why don't we just start Will Benson or something? You know, I don't think it's likely that Noelvi Marte doesn't make the team. I think he will. But I think there's more playing time concern here than you typically see for a player drafted, again, 130th or so in the NFBC format.
Mm-hmm. And we just saw Jack Caglione come off the board as well here.
Good
and that
pick,
is what, the third to last pick of round 16?
Yeah, that was 190th overall.
That feels pretty good on Cags.
Yeah, I like that. I've moved him into about the 160, 170 range. We see a couple injured guys go, Lawrence Butler and Jackson Holiday. Big upside on both, you know, potential 2020 guys, but doesn't sound like either's going to be ready for opening day, right?
Who are those?
Just blank. Lawrence Butler and Jackson Holiday.
Yeah, Jackson Holiday, I saw an interview yesterday. He was on Foul Territory and said that he most likely will not be ready to go for opening day. Lawrence Butler, I was reading an article on MLB.com just yesterday. He has had 30 live at-bats on the backfields and like some minor league type settings. He has yet to play in a spring training game. They're hoping that he makes his debut next week, but they are slow playing him because he's coming back from off-season knee surgery, which I don't love because, you know, we're depending on him to give us 20 plus steals this season, and he's coming back from knee surgery and they're slow playing him. So do they let him run early on in the season? I think that's a legitimate question, but I think there are other things that Butler is still good at, especially if he can tap back into the player he looked like 2 years ago, where he hits the ball hard. It's a great ballpark. It's an improving lineup. So even if he gives us, 10 to 15 steals, can he get the power up to like 25 home runs? And there's a little bit of a trade-off. I think it's possible, but yeah, there is a little bit of risk here with Butler. But he fell in this draft. He's close to 200. I think that's pretty appropriate for him.
Yep, I took Brenton Doyle, 194 after Jackson Holiday, then Edward Cabrera, who was in my queue. We are down to the last 7 or so rounds in this draft, so we should be good by 6:30 to close this one out. I took Ivan Herrera as my util. He is already catcher eligible at Yahoo, I believe. So
yeah, and that's a huge advantage on Yahoo. So
yeah,
you just wait in a one catcher league and grab Ivan Herrera.
That's
awesome.
I mentioned it to Joe, but you aren't on. But it is funny that Yahoo is the league scoring format that gives you the second util spot, and they're also the most generous with position eligibility. So it's like, it doesn't even matter really that you get that second util spot because you have so much more flexibility, right? JJ Weatherholt, triple eligible. Ivan Herrera, already catcher eligible. Yordan Alvarez and Christian Yelich, who I drafted, Christian Yelich, that is, are outfield eligible. So
I think there are only 3 true util only players on Yahoo: Ohtani, Marcell Ozuna, and I think Andrew McCutchen.
That makes it, because Stanton played a little outfield last year, so he probably got it.
I'm wrong about that. But yeah, let me look it up.
I think it's like a percentage of your games played have to be at a certain position is how it works for Yahoo.
Oh, McCutchen has outfield eligibility.
Okay, there you go. Catching up on some of the picks, Max Muncy of the Dodgers. Don't really have to specify, but why not? Luis Arias goes off the board, batting average star. Power hitter when he's wearing Vino Tinto, when he's in the Venezuelan uniform. But I think the number was he has like 5 home runs in his last like 9 games in the WBC or something. He has more multi-homer games in the WBC representing Venezuela than he does in his entire major league career.
It's so interesting, man. Like, you used to hear this about Ichiro, that if he wanted to be a power hitter, he could have, just because he had such incredible bat control, and he could have just upped and pulled the ball more and for trying to hit for more power if he wanted to. It's interesting that I feel like Arise has that good of bat control to do that, but it's probably not going to happen so much in San Francisco.
No. I will say on the Ichiro thing, I covered a Marlins game once, close to whenever he was there, so close to a decade ago, I think. I've been in New York for 6 years, so yeah, it has to have been almost a decade ago. And I watched his batting practice, and he does hit like more home runs than anyone else in batting practice. They're all 2 rows up.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just, he is just peppering the same exact spot 2 rows up in right field. So it's like, the bat control is incredible. I'm not sure he could actually have done it in games, you know?
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But catching up on some picks, Brandon Nimmo, Willie Abreu, Dalton Varsho. We love Dalton Varsho on this show. Alec Burleson, nice batting average source. Carlos Rodon, in this league, you're going to have IL spots to play with that you can wait on him. Jonathan Aranda, Sir Anthony Dominguez. So I think the last player, Team 12, has drafted, is that the only two? Okay, 3 relievers so far. Braxton Ashcraft is the next pick. Frank, I know you like him a lot. Isai Paredes, I think that's a good value. Abner Uribe, in a daily league, even if he's not the closer, he's going to be very valuable. And then your boy, Sal Stewart. That was a very frank run there.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, I like Jonathan Aranda a lot too. So that's a nice little run of some interesting bats. I like Alec Burleson, who went there as well. This is a good value here on Sal Stewart. We see a lot of drafts now where he's going in like the 160 to 175 range. So to get him now, I think we're past 200, right? That feels really good for Sal Stewart, who he's first base eligible to start the year, but he's been playing second and third this spring. I think they're just going to move him all over the diamond to get his bat in the lineup. And some people worried about whether or not he'll play every day. I think he will. Will it be the same spot every day? Probably not. But first base, DH, second, third, I just think Sal Stewart, they value his bat a lot, and he's going to be in there every day.
As long as he hits, right? Like, that's the only but I don't think there's a world where Sal Stewart's as good as we think he will be, and he's only playing 2/3 of the time. I just don't think they have enough guys for that.
And I know it's a dangerous game having this much confidence in a young player who's only played, 18 games in the majors, but I have so much confidence, Chris, that he's
gotta have faith in someone.
A really good hitter. Just between his plate discipline in the minors, his pitch recognition, he hit all different kinds of pitches in the minors last year. The walk rate was high, the strikeouts were down. He hits the ball extremely hard. 30% pulled air rate last season in a small sample in Great American Ballpark. Sky's the limit for that guy, man. I am very excited about Sal Stewart.
I think there's a lot to be excited about there. I just took Dalen Lyle. Love the value there. That is 215th. I have him ranked around 170, 175. So love the value on Dalen Lyle. Matt McClain also goes. He's pushed up. I think his March ADP in NFBC is like 170 or so. So Matt McClain has been arguably the biggest riser among hitters.
Good value here, though.
Yeah, great value there. I'm fading the top 170 pick, but 215 is great. Brendan Donovan goes with the last pick of the 18th round, then Shane Smith, first pick of the 19th. And I'm up, coming off of my phenomenal Dalen Lyle pick. I've got my 2 RP spots, and I've got 3 bench spots to play with. Every other starting lineup spot is filled. So I'm going to start picking from some of these SPARP options that I can throw in there.
I was wondering if you would just completely punt reliever and just take some SPARP guys at this point.
think that's what I'm going to do.
I think it makes sense to do it.
In theory, it would have been Sean Manaea before seeing some of the... Yeah. Was that today that he was throwing like 88?
Yeah, make that pick, Chris.
With his fastball. I'm going to do... it's Andrew Vaughn instead because I ran out of time. That's fine. Live TV, baby.
We do like Andrew Vaughn a lot, too.
Yeah, I think he's just being undervalued. People are kind of treating him either as if what he did after getting to Milwaukee was completely fake, which, okay, that's reasonable, or as if he's going to have some kind of playing time concerns. I think there's 0 playing time concern. I guess Jake Bauers is having a good spring.
I wouldn't put it at 0, but I think it's minimal.
Yeah. Like maybe they platoon those 2 guys, but I think Andrew Vaughn's going to play a lot and could be really good. And it's another one of those ones, if he hits like he did in the second half last year, there's not going to be any playing time concerns.
Yeah. I mean, he made huge improvements with the Brewers last season, hit the ball really hard, lots of line drives. He really just got off to a terrible start with the White Sox last year. But if you look at what he did previously before that, he was just kind of one of these steady, boring corner
260 average, 20 homers.
20 homer kind of guy. And I think he can get to that again. And I think what he showed with the Brewers, there's a little bit of upside, maybe some untapped potential that the Brewers are helping him get to. And he's going to hit in the middle of that lineup. And that's a really good lineup too. So
I like that. After Andrew Vaughn, Jose Caballero, ton of steals.
He's great for this format because you can move him all over the place whenever
he might actually, he might be eligible literally every position. No, he's actually has the same eligibility at Yahoo as he does at CBS.
And he's a category dominator with the steals. So
Kerry Carpenter, Carter Jensen. I mean, this is the 18th round. We had Yainer Diaz, Adley Rutschman, and then Carter Jensen in the 19th round. The thing about Yahoo, especially because you get Ivan Herrera as a catcher-eligible player as well. In a one-catcher league, you can wait so long. Like, I took William Contreras, I think, in the 7th round. Yeah, 7th round. And every time I take a catcher early in a one-catcher league, even if it's a great value, I regret it. Because there are just so many good guys still
You
available.
took William Contreras earlier, and you wound up getting Ivan Herrera at a great value later, too.
But, like, Gabriel Moreno is still available. Francisco Alvarez is still available. I love both of those guys. So it's catcher in a one-catcher league is just so stupid deep.
It's hard to figure out, too, because in a shallower format, you want to have that advantage over your opponents. But again, it's the opportunity cost where you're using maybe a top 10 round pick on a catcher where you can boost another position and you can still wind up with a starting worthy catcher in round 20. Which is crazy.
But I think the distinction with William Contreras, getting him in the 7th round, is like, one, he was the number 1 catcher 2 years ago and was the consensus number 1 catcher in drafts last year. And 2, I think even more so than Cal Raleigh, he's actually a 5 category guy. Raleigh, even last year, I think he only hit like 260, right? He did steal 14 bases, which was surprising. But, you know, William Contreras, you're going to get a good batting average. You're going to get 20 or so homers, maybe more. Great RBI and run numbers because he's been in the lineup a ton. He steals like 8 bases every year. He's a true 5 category catcher. Catching up, Spencer Torkelson with the 6th pick of the 19th round, Gleyber Torres, Kirby Yates, Dylan Cruz, Merrill Kelly, Noah Cameron, JT Realmuto. Coming back in the 20th, Jake Berger, Ryan Weathers, Mike Trout in the 20th round is crazy.
I am all out on Mike Trout, but man, at that point, why not?
Yeah, like you're looking at like Mike Trout and Nolan Shanuel went in consecutive picks. Yeah. Look, Nolan Shanuel is not a worthless player. He's a pretty good player, but
he's a little different than Mike Trout.
Yeah, Mike Trout, right? Like I know he had a bad season, but like he did stay healthy and hit 26 homers. You know, it's not like he was terrible.
I brought this up on yesterday's podcast. We were doing position preview updates, and Mike Trout in a game this March has hit 30 feet per second on his sprint speed, which is something he hasn't done since April of 2024 before all of his knee injuries. So I'm not saying he's necessarily going to run more, but that tells me that he's healthy. He feels good. He's moving well. And overall, I think that's good news for Mike Trout. I'm still not targeting him, but I think overall that lets you know that Mike Trout's feeling pretty good this spring.
All right, I got my first RP. I go Joey Cantillo. Let's catch up. Parker Messick with the 5th pick of the 20th round. Quinn Priester dealing with that wrist injury, but you know if he's okay, that's a pretty good pick. Royce Lewis, love the value. Chris Bassett, Brandon Lau, great value for Brandon Lau for some cheap pop. Munetaka Murakami, I like the pick in the 20th round there as well. 238th overall. Joey Cantillo to me, and then I think the person picking behind me is watching my queue because he takes Reed Detmers, one of the RPs that I had
Detmers first
queued up. Then Alejandro Kirk, and it's back to me. I'm gonna go with I don't even know if he's gonna be in the rotation. Let's take a chance on Kyle Harrison and what we've seen lately from him, which is fastball velocity still up, right around 95. It's where he was last year, but this new kick change could really change things for him because he's always had pretty good fastball, especially if he's averaging 95, but he throws it like 70% of the time, 60% of the time. His only other reliable pitch has been a slurve, which is a very good pitch. If the kick change can be something that Kyle Harrison can truly rely on, that could really change his whole outlook. So I'm interested in that. With Quinn Priester's injury, he could be in the Brewers rotation. We followed that up with Samuel Basayo, Ezekiel Tovar, Matt Shaw. I was interested in Matt Shaw as a sleeper coming into the season. It just doesn't seem like there's anywhere for him to play.
He seems like a super util type that will be used to give people days off here or there. Maybe he's the short side platoon at DH with Moises Ballesteros. If Ballesteros struggles, maybe Matt Shaw just becomes the everyday DH. That is a possibility. And I don't think they're completely out on him just because he was their top prospect and they still have a lot invested in him.
He's still young.
I think their moves this offseason kind of tell you how they feel about him at least a little bit, right? Like bringing in Alex Bregman to take over that third base job. And
long term too.
A lot of names in the outfield too. So it seems tough to project a good amount of plate appearances here for Matt Shaw. But I guess in a daily lineup league, you could just throw him in there whenever he's playing.
We followed that up with Bryson Stott, who, Frank, I know you're drafting a decent amount this season. Just super boring fallback option at second base.
Yeah, just boring guy. Again, someone for steals, 25 to 30 steals, 10 to 15 home runs. A lot of leagues that we play in, you can't be good everywhere, Chris. You need to have kind of one weak spot in your lineup, and a lot of times that's been second base for me.
And if that weak spot is a guy who's going to play every day and at least stand out somewhere, which he will with stolen bases, that's perfectly fine. We've got Carlos Correa after him, Ramon Laureano, good value there, Roki Sasaki, and then there you go, Francisco Alvarez, the 10th pick of the 21st round. That player also did already have a catcher, but hey, you can get a second catcher. Cody Ponce, we love that one. Robert Suarez, I really like Robert Suarez just as a later round flyer. I think he probably typically goes around 200 or higher. So to get him with the second to last pick of the 21st round is great, or the last pick of the 21st round. Followed up with Gabe Spire, Jack Leiter, Sean Manaea, another Sparp, Jose Soriano. If the Angels had anything better than the worst infield defense in baseball, Jose Soriano could be pretty good. Elite ground ball pitcher, but he's just like Zachary Neto's not a very good shortstop. They've got big question marks at second base. Is Christian Moore, do we still think he's the starter at second for them?
I have no idea.
I have not heard anything about
on
him.
Grissom, and they've
brought
in some other players this offseason. So that feels like a position battle this spring. I'm not sure that it matters all that much. Gabe Spire, someone I just wanted to mention here. Again, like in this format, head-to-head categories with the daily lineups, this is where you start to see relievers who are not going to get saves still be drafted because they give you good ratios, good strikeouts, maybe grab some wins here or there. So Gabe Spire typically in a roto league just would not be drafted, but in head-to-head categories, you could just kind of lock them in there all the time and continue to rack up some strikeouts and ratios.
Yep, we've got Justin Crawford, who I love there. Sounds like he's the starting center fielder for the Phillies. Big stolen base, big batting average potential. Might not be a total zero in power. He does hit the ball pretty hard. Trent Grisham, 22nd round for 34 homers last year. That's pretty good. Robert Garcia might be the closer for the Rangers. Jason Dominguez seems like he's going to start the season at AAA, although I do think he's having a pretty nice spring. So it's not a fait accompli that Jason Dominguez starts at AAA, but it does look likely.
I think it's going to happen, but I mean, look, Stanton gets hurt every single year.
Yeah.
There will be opportunities. I think Dominguez could wind up being a pretty popular waiver wire pickup at points throughout the season, but to start the year, I think he's probably going to be at AAA, which sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer Jones is having a big spring too, but they've already reassigned him to minors camp.
All right, we're going to take another Sparp. I think it's going to be Nick Martinez. That's boring and gross, but maybe. Actually, we'll do it.
I think that's fine.
He's solid. It's Tampa. It's at Tropicana. You know, I was watching Spencer Strider and Nick Martinez pitch the other day, and the overwhelming thought I had was, if you told me one of these two guys was the best pitcher in the world 2 years ago, I would not have a strong sense of who that was just watching them now, which is not a mark in Nick Martinez's favor. I took Nick Martinez with the second pick of the second to last pick of the 22nd round. Jacob Lopez, I like that flyer with the last pick of the 22nd round. Ernie Clement there, a lot of positional flexibility. My last pick, we're in the 23rd round. Grayson Rodriguez, just a total flyer, but I think we've seen some decent stuff from him this spring. Will Warren having a really good spring for the Yankees. Elliot Ramos, Will Vest, Casey Mize, and we are on to the last 6 picks of the draft. So we've made good time. We've got a little bit of time before your next draft. That's what we wanted to see, right, Frank?
That is perfect. Yes, I was in the chat frantically telling everyone, please draft quicker so that we can make sure. Maybe next year we just space these drafts out a little bit more.
Give ourselves like a 15-minute buffer.
Yeah, we can recap our teams afterwards, and it gives us
our breath.
A little bit of a chance to catch our breath and stuff. But we are making good time here. We still got about 6 minutes until the next draft starts, and this draft is pretty much winding down.
Over my team?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I've got the Contreras brothers, William at catcher, Wilson at first base. I've got Jazz Chisholm at second, JJ Weatherholt at third, Francisco Lindor at shortstop. My outfield is James Wood, Christian Yelich, and Brenton Doyle. Don't love the Doyle one. I think I'm just going to mentally put Dalen Lyle in there. Shohei Ohtani is my util 1, Ivan Herrera my util 2. I've got Dalen Lyle and Andrew Vaughn on the bench. Pitching staff, Jacob deGrom, Kyle Bradish are my 2 starting pitchers. Joey Cantillo and Kyle Harrison are my 2 quote-unquote relief pitchers. They will both be starting. Hopefully Kyle Harrison's in the rotation. My pitchers, Kevin Gausman, Bubba Chandler, Trevor Rogers, and Luis Castillo. On my bench, I've got Tetsuya Imai, Nick Martinez, and Grayson Rodriguez. So I've got 3 guys to swap through those RP spots, and then I've got 8 starting pitchers to put in my RP, my SP and P spots. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely like the upside that you wound up with on the pitching staff. Lots of interesting names there on the bench and guys that you could cycle through. I think it's an interesting strategy, too, just from a head-to-head categories roster building perspective, is just punting saves, right? That is something that you could do in a format like this where, saves are a standalone stat category. They're not affected by anything else. It's not like home runs affect runs and RBI and batting average. Saves are all alone. There's nothing else that really, is correlated with saves. So if you want to punt that category, it's completely feasible, and drafting a bunch of upside at starting pitcher, even with a couple of aces up top, I think that makes a lot of sense as a viable strategy.
I'm looking at the projections. Number 1 projected in Ks, first in wins, last in ERA. I mean, that'll happen. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. We're done with the draft. Let's talk about those last few picks. It was Otto Lopez, Bryce Eldridge. Love the last round Bryce Eldridge. Luis Garcia, Kodai Senga. His velocity's been up this spring. Jordan Lawler has actually hit well this spring. There's still some strikeout issues, but he's walking a ton. He's hitting the ball hard, so still has some upside there with Jordan Lawler. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.